You know it's not going to do anything, right? That's not going to change anything. And it's just not a fad that's going to die out soon enough. These are all comments I received since adopting a plant-based diet. Not to be confused with being vegan. Plant-based is strictly dietary as it eliminates all beef, chicken, meat, fish, and dairy products, and as well as other animal byproducts, of course. Being vegan is a much more strict lifestyle as it includes diet, but also politics, the clothes you wear, and the entertainment attractions you go see and visit. The 2 points I'll be making today explaining how a plant-based diet is much more in saving animals' lives is the numerous health upsides that it has, as well as how it helps the environment. So plant-based diets are traditionally not as high in calories and fat as traditional diets are. I myself last year lost 40 pounds. Last January I was 230. Next September I was 190. Now I walk around anywhere from 190, 195, and I can fluctuate that pretty well. And besides my own personal experience, besides my weight loss, I also witnessed a drastic drop in my arthritis and inflammation. While I was younger, I used to swim competitively for both club and high school, and over years of competition, I incurred some inflammation in my lead arm, primarily my shoulder, and that inflammation would limit me to how many exercises I was able to do, as well as how heavy I could go. Since I made a transition to a plant-based diet, I have suffered from none of that. I can do as many exercises as I like and go as heavy as I please. And besides my own personal experiences, people with a plant-based diet are also drastically less likely to concur from cancer and chronic illnesses. According to Brenda Davis from DoSomething.org, plant-based women had 34% lower rates of breast, ovarian, and cervical cancer. Similar rates are also found in men with prostate cancer. Now, this is also supported by a study done by Nobel Prize-winning Elizabeth Blackburn. In her study, she showed that after 3 months of a plant-based diet, over 500 genes were changed. Genes that were changed were genes that inhibit disease and cancer were turned off, and disease that prevent cancer and illnesses like that were turned on. Now, some opposition I faced from a plant-based diet, the first one would be that I'm B12 deficient. Now, this is true in a plant-based diet. You can't get B12 naturally outside of a dietary supplement. But a study done by Martha Morris and Jacob Hassel held at Tufts University, a 3,000-person study found that suggested that nearly 40% of all Americans are deficient in B12 to suffer from neurological issues. So B12 deficiency is not strictly a plant-based diet issue, but a general American issue as well. And the most common opposition I've faced is if I don't eat meat, then where do I get my protein from? I can't get enough of it. This is absolutely absurd because I can eat lentils, beans, nuts, tofu, soy meats, plant-based protein shakes, and many other sources of protein, so I'm good in that department. Besides cleaning our own bodies, it also restores our environment as well, which brings me to my second point. Going plant-based is one of the best ways to combat climate change, and according to Grain and Institute for Agriculture and Trade Policy, together, the world's top 5 dairy and meat corporations are responsible for more annual greenhouse gases than Shell, Exxon, and BP. So knowing that the top 5 dairy and meat corporations produce more annual greenhouse gases than fossil fuels, it suggests that it's a great combat of climate change. It also does not need as many resources. According to Allison Aubrey from NPR, it takes 13,000 liters of water to produce 1 kilo of beef versus 1,000, 2,000 liters for most plant-based foods. A more realistic example is how a soy burger only needs 158 liters of water compared to 2,300 liters of water for a hamburger. That's really astounding. Poorly managed waste from factory farms are also destroying habitats. Joe McCarthy and Erica Sanchez from Global Citizen go on to say, similar to how livestock pollute water, they also erode and weaken the soil. Because the soil is eroded and weakened, this leads to massive clearing swaths of land, which consists of mainly trees. And trees are a natural fighter of climate change. As most of us may know, trees take in CO2 and release oxygen. That combats climate change, so taking them out is not a good idea. And in closing, adopting a plant-based diet does much more to save animals' lives. Having a plant-based diet has numerous health benefits, whether it's weight loss control or preventing cancer and chronic disease. It also combats climate change and does not need as many resources to do so as a traditional diet does. I encourage you to go green, go plant-based, go healthy. Thank you.
All right, in the body of the speech is pretty well organized. You've got, the two main issues that you're talking about. On the first issue, you do get, I don't want to say sidetracked, but you do get kind of involved in some rebuttal arguments that you're presenting on, the dietary needs that you mentioned. And those, I think, are perfectly fine, but they do seem to take up a big chunk of the argument here in regards to benefits. I think you could probably use a little bit more information on the health benefits that you've got, because other than your personal example, you have one generic piece of information that talks about relationship to cancers and that sort of thing. And that's about as far as it goes. And I think that you probably need something more sufficient than that. It's not that it's a bad piece of information, but by itself, it seems like it's not as convincing. And it would be nice also, even if you use the same source, if there was a little bit of an explanation about why that was true. It's one of those things where you just got a statistical correlation and we're assuming that there is a relationship as a consequence, and I'm not sure that that's going to be as safe a conclusion as you can make. That'll probably be one of those points that the response speaker will be talking about. And the rebuttal issues, they were probably fine to answer, because especially if we're talking about dietary needs, I think that makes sense. The second argument, you have some pretty good information there about what the benefits would be. There are some presuppositions about the resources. For instance, the water use is always one of those things. I've heard this argument a lot. The question concerns whether or not we have sufficient amount of water. I think one of the things that's missing, your argument that it requires more to produce the beef or the meat products than it does the plant-based products is perfectly quantifiable in this regard. But if we have a fairly wide availability of water and there's no negative consequence to it, what difference does that make? And I think you need to have some kind of argument there that suggests water resources might be restricted, or in some parts of the world it's problematic, and that would give us a little bit more reason to care about that issue. And then you've got the other arguments that are kind of presented a little bit passively about the greenhouse gases and the dairy and meat industry producing more greenhouse gases than the fossil fuel industry. I think that's an okay argument, but again, it's a little generic. It's a dramatic claim, but I think the proof on it needs a little bit more development. And the same sort of thing with the trees being cut down, that sort of thing. They're generally valid points, but there's always a context that would make the argument stronger. So I think your content stuff is pretty solid, and I like the evidence that you cited. The thing that was a little bit problematic for me, I thought you rushed the opening. I wasn't quite sure what your proposition was at the beginning. And when I heard it at the end, it sounds a little bit awkward that a plant-based diet does more than save animals' lives. That's an odd way to phrase the claim that you were making when you want us to do this. It's like, well, it doesn't just do this. Well, first of all, I don't know that it does that. And second, why is that where we're starting? It makes more sense, I think, to talk about. It's not that hard. You just simply say a plant-based diet has significant advantages to humanity. There you go. That's your claim, and that would be a little bit clearer. The other thing is just kind of convoluted, and I don't think we need that. All right. Thank you.